Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Austin Bruins Coaches Show. I'm David Coyer, joined this week by Associate Head Coach Al Rooney. Al, thanks for joining the program. And are you excited to be here on the Coaches Show on this fine Tuesday morning as we're recording?
Sure, I'm always excited to spend some time with you, David.
Al Rooney, just the bundle of joy as always. And before we kind of dive into recapping what's kind of been happening the last couple of weeks with the Bruins, previewing this upcoming series against the Watertown Shamrocks, I want to kind of introduce this segment. Al Rooney will be joining us occasionally here on the Coaches Show, rotating with some of the other coaches. Of course, the first 2 weeks we've had head coach Steve Howard, but one thing that I just kind of am going to dub reminiscing with Rooney, you had a very interesting hockey career. You know, you started playing a little later, but then rose through the junior ranks, ended up playing some professional hockey as well. And I think I've gotten to hear some of your minor league hockey stories. I think some of the fans want to hear some as well. So is there a kind of a fun minor league hockey story that you have for us?
I mean, if you play hockey in the minor leagues, there's always stories. That's for sure. And I played 8 years. I'd say probably one of the quintessential minor league stories was I think it was my second year, and I was married, and my wife was pregnant, and I went out to San Angelo, Texas, was playing for the San Angelo Outlaws, and came in as a stopgap measure because they had an injury to their number one goalie. So I came in for I had basically 4 weeks, and then the injury was longer, so I had to stay another little bit. In the meantime, I was trying to beat out the other guy so I could stay. So eventually it got to the point where we had a Saturday night game against the Lake Charles Ice Pirates.
Heck of a name.
Oh, yeah. And was called into the office before the game and basically told that, hey, Al, you've been doing a great job. You're starting tonight, as you know. But Craig comes off the IR tomorrow, so I'm going to leave it in your hands. So if you win tonight, you stay. If you lose, we got to let you go tomorrow. We'll keep Trevor. I was like, okay, yeah, no problem. And he's just like, yeah, I figured you could handle it and just go out and let's get a win. I said, yeah, let's do it. And as soon as I walked out of the office, started getting dressed, didn't say a word to any of the guys, but inside I'm thinking, wow, okay. Then we went out for the national anthem, and I'm standing there looking up at the flag during the anthem, and I look over at my then wife, and she's out to hear pregnant, and she smiles at me, and I'm thinking this poor woman has no idea that if we lose tonight, we're packing a U-Haul tomorrow. If we win, we're great, but we won. I had a good game that night, and we won, and it's just a quintessential view of life in the minors. It's a high pressure situation. Like, you're doing what you love, but you have to execute, you have to perform, and there's no real guaranteed contracts at that level. So it's not for the faint of heart, that lifestyle, to be honest. But it worked out in that particular situation. But yeah, if you spend enough time in the minors, there's a lot of ups and downs.
It's not as do or die at the junior level, you would say, correct?
No, I mean we have the ability to, there are trades at this level, and we do release players. There's certainly roster turnover. We're dealing with young men, though. I don't think we put them in quite those stark situations. At least we try not to, anyway. So yeah, at this level, we're trying to develop guys and teach them on and off the ice. So we try not to put that much pressure on them.
And so, kind of shifting gears now. Thank you for that. That was definitely a great one. I'm hoping we can do a little bit more reminiscing with Rooney, because we've got some fun stories, both appropriate for the Coaches Show, some maybe not as much, but I'm sure the fans would love to hear into your expansive hockey career and what you've all been through. But kind of focusing back a little bit more on the Bruins. The Bruins starting the season 4-0. The calendar turned over to October, and that's where things somewhat sort of fell apart. A sweep by the Minot Minotauros here at home, a quick victory against the Minnesota Mallards, and then heading out to Bismarck and another sweep this past weekend, splitting with St. Cloud's. That was after being shut out 2-0 on Friday. A overtime victory this past Saturday. What in your eyes, have you seen has been the biggest change in play between the 4-0 start that we saw in September and what's been happening here in October?
Well, I think even when things were going well in the preseason and that 4-0 start, we as a coaching staff all kind of agreed that we were waiting for the other shoe to drop, so to speak, in the sense that we knew we had a young team. We were going to have to learn how to overcome some mistakes and adversity, and quite frankly, credit to the guys. We were playing really well at the beginning. But we were playing against some teams that were still trying to figure some things out, and we're making mistakes, and we were capitalizing on the mistakes. As the season wears on, teams are less apt to make mistakes of their own accord, and you got to kind of execute and force them and put them under pressure to force those and create those mistakes. And we just haven't been doing as good a job, I feel, of that as of late. And with a younger team, we knew there was going to be a few stumbling blocks along the road, and it's just up to us to identify those and make sure we get them ironed out and squared away.
And one thing that's kind of been a trend throughout this October is Friday almost blowouts, you might call them, and then Saturday bounce backs. Against Minot, it was a 5-1 loss on Friday coming out of the gate. A 4-2 loss on Saturday, really 3-2. You had the empty netter right there at the end. So still a one-goal game against Bismarck. 5 unanswered goals leading to a 6-2 loss on Friday, and then a 2-1 loss that came down to the final 90 seconds on Saturday. Even now with St. Cloud, 2-0 shutout on Friday, and then a 3-2 overtime victory on Saturday. What needs to be done to come out of the gate on Friday? It seems like the Bruins have almost come out a little bit slow in Friday games. What needs to be done to kind of get them right out of the gate, hitting hard, able to get those Friday wins so it's not a bounce-back Saturday trying to use that Friday night loss as a motivation?
Again, I think it's just going to be as the season wears on and the players gain more experience, there's going to be less of that unknown as we're facing these teams for the first time. We'll start seeing we're facing Watertown for the first time this weekend, but the following weekend we'll see Bismarck. I believe, and that's a team we've already faced. So some of that unknown factors will start coming out of the equation for a lot of rookies that we have in the lineup. So I think that's part of it, and part of it is on us as coaches to make sure that we're getting prepared throughout the week and getting these guys ready to go right from the get-go. Confidence is a big factor, and I think that's why we bounce back the following day, is we identify things, and the guys have responded real well. And once we see what other teams are made of, we've responded well. So hopefully that bodes well for us moving forward.
And you mentioned Watertown, first time seeing them this upcoming weekend. The only other team that the Bruins haven't faced in the Central Division, the Aberdeen Wings. Obviously, the Wings have been around for some time. Watertown, one of 2 new teams here in the Central Division. Already facing off against the Minnesota Mallards, had that victory a few weeks ago. What do you see coming up this weekend against Watertown with them being a new team? Does that provide any additional challenges?
Well, yeah. I mean, we've never been to their building. They've got a new facility there that we're looking forward to seeing, and hopefully it's warm. And but they're going to be desperate. They're a desperate team right now. They've been struggling as of late. We haven't been setting the world on fire, so I think it's going to be 2 teams that are playing desperate hockey, which should make for some good games. They're going to be defending home ice. They haven't played a whole lot of home games there, so we expect a good crowd, and it's going to be 2 tough games for us, but we got to take care of business.
Al Rooney, despite being around hockey his entire life, still gets cold at every rink he goes to. Bought a new coat. How's the coat been treating?
It's been working out pretty well so far. So well, I give that acquisition an A+ so far.
A+. If any of you are able to see him on the bench, whether here at Riverside or on the road, it's a very stylish coat. Keeps him warm. That's all he needs. But for a guy who's been around hockey for so long, how do you still get cold in the rinks?
I don't know, and it's not getting any better. As I get older, with each passing year, I'm getting colder and colder. I used to love the cold, now not so much. But I love Minnesota, so I love living here, and I love the snow. It's just these rinks are so cold.
Riverside is probably one of the colder rinks I've ever been to, and I was told there were a couple others that were colder, and So far I haven't found one. Riverside it gets pretty chilly here during the day.
She's a chilly one, that's for sure.
Well, you handle the adversity of the cold here in the rink by, getting a new coat, but that's kind of been the theme over these last couple of weeks as you're talking to the players is handling this adversity with some of these tough losses to some good teams. How do you guys as a coaching staff keep these players motivated and coach them into some of that resiliency when handling this adversity?
Well, it's about bringing them along. I mean, I've always said junior hockey is a small window of opportunity. You get 2 seasons, sometimes 3 at most, but it's usually a 2-season window of opportunity for you to make the most of that opportunity. And basically stressing to these guys that every situation and every shift, it's not hyperbole to say that every shift is an opportunity to showcase something. If you're up 5-1 late in the game, are you still playing hard? Showcasing to these college and pro scouts that you're still focused and lasered in. If you're down 5-1, have you quit? Are you going through the motions? Like every game and every shift is an opportunity for them to leave their mark and make a contribution, and that's something that we've been stressing to the players is you have to find a contribution every game. If you're not scoring, then you got to be tough to play against. And it's just bringing all these guys along and trying to keep things fresh and finding new challenges each weekend for them to overcome, because they're a motivated bunch. You know, a lot of junior hockey players are self-motivated young men, and it's just about finding the right challenges and pointing them in the right direction, and usually they'll take care of business from there.
And you talk about, obviously, and I've talked on this show with Steve Howard, especially around the showcase time, the big overall objective of playing in junior hockey is to continue your career at the collegiate level, and you and Coach Howard have both been able to do that. And there's a couple guys on this team who have already made their commitments, but one of the more recent commitments, Jack Solomon, the netminder for the Austin Bruins, committing to UMass Lowell Division I out east. And as a former goaltender, how big is that for not only him to be able to make that commitment so early on in the season, but how does that affect the mentality of a goaltender? Now you have that commitment. Does that change his style of play going on during the season?
I don't know if it necessarily changes his style of play, and I'm not sure I can speak for Jack, but overall in general, as a goalie and as a player in general, it's good to have that commitment in your back pocket, because there's less of that unknown moving forward. You've got your commitment. Now it's about staying motivated, playing hard for your teammates that don't have the commitments. And it's also about identifying, and working with that program, working with UMass Lowell. When do they need him to come in? Is it 2 years or is it 1 year? What do I need to do? What are they identifying that I need to work on? And trying to find that balance of what does he need to do right now and what does he need to do to grow into the goalie that they need him to be in the future. So there's a lot of spokes in the wheel that you're dealing with, both as a player and a coach, during a junior hockey season. And that also helps it keep it fresh for the guys too. There's a lot of challenges to face.
And obviously goaltender is such a specialty position. Teams don't need more than 2 or 3 goaltenders. How much harder is it for someone like Jack Solomon, Devin Russley, or even yourself while you were playing to get that commitment?
Yeah, I mean, it's like anything. It's the pyramid structure, and there's less opportunities the further you go up. But as a goalie, it's a more specialized position because not a lot of people want to play that position. But there's opportunities. It's like-minded. There's not as many opportunities, but there's not as many goalies. So it kind of all balances out. But it's tough. These guys, like I said, they're self-motivated. These are young men that have moved, some across from Europe, some from Canada. They've all moved here to Austin to pursue something. They're all pretty serious about what they want to do. And it's nice to be a part of that and help them along with that, because it seems like yesterday when I was doing it, and it goes by pretty fast. So it's good to see these guys getting rewarded for the work that they've been putting in.
Moving on, you are the one who Steve Howard is credited with you with the success of the penalty kill so far this season, and throughout September not allowing a single power play goal. Since then, 9 power play goals allowed in the month of October on 37 chances, including a season high 5 allowed against Minot throughout that weekend on 11 chances. As of recent, starting to recover a little bit over the last 3 games, just 1 power play goal on 11 chances dating back to that Saturday game against Bismarck, the lone power play goal being allowed this past Saturday against St. Cloud. What areas have improved since the beginning of October? Because obviously we've seen that improvement over these last few games. What improvements have been made, and what improvements do you still hope to see in that PK unit?
Well, I think early on you're just going for a lot of high-pressure situations because, again, teams are trying to get things figured out. So penalty killing early on in the season is rather I don't want to make it sound easy, but it's rather easy in the sense that you're just go hard and lots of pressure. Then teams start getting figured out, and there's that little bubble where we struggle for a little bit. And sometimes, you don't want to point the finger at one particular thing, but sometimes, early on we got a couple of big saves, and that helped us keep them off the board. We were looking for a few saves during that Minot weekend. There was a few breakdowns, a few bounces, so it'll fluctuate, and it's about staying steady and even keeled throughout the season. Now, having said that, we're starting to now get into an opportunity, and now some teams have some games under their belt, so we can kind of pre-scout them and start identifying, all right, here's what they like to do, here's what we have to counter with. So I think that's where we're starting to see our guys are starting to come back into the fold. We're starting to be able to identify some specifics and also identify some guys that are stronger at it than others, and you start to figure some things out. So hopefully we can keep that up. And St. Cloud came into this past weekend ranked number 1 in the league, and we were able to do a pretty good job on them. So hopefully we can take that momentum against Watertown this weekend.
One big change to the PK unit, at least from this last weekend, the addition of Ashton Bynum returning to the Bruins for his third season after playing 4 games with the Fargo Force of the USHL. Talk about the addition of Bynum, not only to the PK unit, but just the defense overall. I know you and I have kind of chatted in previous weeks about the youth of the defensive core, the 2 returning veterans in Nathan Williams and Eli Brown, and then Brown getting traded away to Elmira. So you really had Williams with Ludwig Mellgren has some experience under his belt as well, but you look back to Bismarck, he was out for both of those games with an injury. So now you have another vet in Bynum. Talk about just kind of his addition to this team.
It's big because not only is he a veteran player that has kind of been there, done that with at this level, but has played here. So it's nice to have him and Willie. Mellgren's played some, but it's been in Europe, so he's still adjusting, but I think he's adjusted very well. But, yeah, with Mellgren out, before we had Bynum, we went into Bismarck, which is a tough building to play, and 6 of our 7D in the lineup were rookies, and that's tough, and they did a commendable job. They did the best they could, and hopefully it was a good learning experience for them. Having said that, the addition of Bynum, having Mellgren back, it starts to give us the ability to pretty much have a veteran out there, in every pairing, which can hopefully settle things down. And he can play all situations, Bynum, for us. He's got a really good shot, hit the post big time this weekend. So I think he's not only going to add us a little bit of offense for us, he can move the puck well. He'll see some power plays, some PK time. So he'll be a good steadying presence, and I think some of the younger guys can look up and learn from him, and he'll be able to eat some quality minutes for us.
And, of course, defense just half of the game. You got to look to the offense as well. And the offense for the Bruins struggling to produce in recent weeks. Of course, 6 goals. You look back to the victory against the Minnesota Mallards, but since then, 3 goals combined against Bismarck, and then this weekend just 3 goals combined against St. Cloud. We got to look to that all-Canadian line. That's kind of been the big story of this season is the line of Luke Mulcahy, Alex Lorenza, EJ Paddington. Through the first 4 games, those 4-0 stretch, 10 goals, 16 assists for 26 points. Since then, in the last 6 games, just 5 goals, 8 assists, 13 points. You saw Lorenza actually miss that game against the Mallards, and then Paddington missing both games this weekend due to a suspension for that hit against Bismarck. Obviously, it's great to see that a line like that has success, but when the rest of the lines aren't producing as much, that creates that little bit of a struggle. So what do you see from some of those other lines, and what needs to be done to have a little bit more of equal production across the lines?
Well, some guys are starting to gain some traction on it. Jackson Riley and Sammy Samuelson are those 2 guys are are starting to click and produce. I think it's a matter of, as the season wears on. First of all, it's credit to other teams. It's tough to score. This is a tough division. I think it showed that in the showcase by far. Our division had the best record against all the other divisions. So this is a tough division. There's no weekends off. I think some of our younger guys are starting to discover that. And we feel pretty confident that as the season wears on that these guys will start gaining traction on some things. I think when you got some of these younger players, they play in the moment at times, and they get caught up in the moment. When you see them settle down and execute into our systems and not playing in the moment, that's when we start seeing some success. And that it's just a matter of us as a coaching staff to make sure that they consistently, can play and identify situations and execute to expectations. When we see that, I think things will start to kind of click for our depth as well.
And you mentioned Jackson Riley, the captain, playing in his 100th game this last Saturday against St. Cloud, having a power play goal to get the scoring started. He's got 3 goals and an assist in his last 5 games. Emil Samuelsson, since being paired with Jackson Riley on that line, 2 goals, 4 assists in his last 6 games, including 3 points against the Minnesota Mallards. And so you've seen a little bit of production from there. We've seen some of the rookies scoring their first career North American Hockey League goal. Now the Bruins heading into Watertown. We kind of talked about Watertown a little bit before. Bruins 6-5 on the season, 4th in the Central Division, a very difficult decision that still sees Bismarck undefeated. The Aberdeen Wings with just 1 loss. They were undefeated for quite some time. Now the Shamrocks, bottom of the Central Division, they've kind of had some growing pains, some struggles, not as successful as the other newcomer Minnesota Mallards. What's the mindset heading into a weekend like this?
We got to be prepared for 2 tough games. It's never easy to win on the road. We got to go into a new building that none of us are familiar with. So we got to be prepared to execute. And I've been telling the D, we got to start helping on the offensive blue line, start getting pucks through the net, and start making our contributions to help the forwards create some situations to help them create some offense, while simultaneously making sure we keep the play in front of us. And just simple stuff like that. Keep it simple and efficient right now, especially when you're going on the road. But I think it's important for us that we take it 1 game at a time. But make no mistake, Friday we expect a win and 2 points out of our guys.
The Bruins travel to Watertown this Friday and Saturday. Puck drop 7 p.m. both nights. You can find those games on NATV. That's NAHLTV.com. I'll be on the call for both of those games. Again, puck drop 7 p.m. The Bruins are back at Riverside Arena November 1st and 2nd against the Bismarck Bobcats. Puck drop from Riverside, 7:05 those nights. Tickets can be found at tickets.austinbruins.com. November 1st is First Responders Night. All first responders who show an ID at the door get a free Bruins ticket. So again, you can look all that information up online at austinbruins.com. Get your tickets all season long at tickets.austinbruins.com. Another edition of the Coach's Show here. My guest, Associate Head Coach Al Rooney. Al, thanks for joining us this week.
Thank you for having me.
We'll see we'll actually see you in 2 weeks, every other Thursday here on the Austin Bruins YouTube channel for the Austin Bruins Coach's Show. We'll see you this weekend from Watertown. Have a good night.